In this video, I want to help you to find more time to read in your life. So let's get started. First, you need to recognize that reading is a lifestyle. If you want to start reading consistently and plowing through that book list, you need to decide that you're just going to be a reader. So I've said it before, and lots of people say it, that readers are leaders and leaders are readers. And so these people have cultivated a regular habit. They have formed their life around reading. They've made it a habit that's consistent in their life. And so you really need to embrace that idea that you want to be a reader and that you are going to do it consistently. To help you with that, the first thing you really want is a reading list. I personally have 3 reading lists. I have my academic reading, which is really, the bulk of what I'm talking about in this particular lecture, but I also have a fiction list of novels that I've heard about or people have told me about, and I said, yeah, I'd like to read that at some point. I always have at least one novel going during, every day I have something going. Doesn't mean I get to it every day. And then I have my academic reading, my nonfiction, and then I also have, more spiritual or life enrichment. I have a list of books like that as well. I even have a sub list of that that are audiobooks, which I'll talk about in a minute. So you want to keep a reading list, and I don't just mean having a list in your head, because when you see a book and say, I think I'd like to read that, but you don't actually write it down, that's a list you never actually get to again. So don't keep a list in your head, have it written down somewhere. Next, you need to restrict your social media. The reality is that you're probably actually reading a lot. The problem is that you're reading Facebook status updates, you're reading articles linked to on Facebook by your friends, you're reading threads in Facebook of conversations, or you're reading comments on YouTube videos or comments on newspaper articles, or you're reading lots of tweets or back and forth tweets. So you're actually probably reading a lot. It's just that if you stop and think about it, I'm convinced that you'd probably prefer to spend that time reading an actual book and learning more than just following what your friends are talking about. And so again, it's a decision of where you're going to prioritize your reading time on that list that you've created that you really want to get to, or just kind of this mindless social media wanderings. So you need to really restrict that. You need to always have reading material with you as well. And this is where ebooks are really fantastic. I read a lot on Logos Bible software as well as Amazon Kindle, and I have those on my phone, I have them on my tablet, they're on any laptop I'm at, and so those are great ways to be able to have books on hand with you all the time. However, even if you're not a big ebook fan, it's still okay to carry hardcover books around. People do it a lot. It tends to be, though, that people carry around novels, and so again, if you want to make it a habit to read more nonfiction, you need to start carrying those books around. Those times when maybe you're going to be sitting in traffic, those times when you're waiting for someone to arrive at a meeting and you're sitting in a coffee shop, just have that ready to go. If you're going to go to a doctor's appointment, I went the other day and carried a big book with me because I don't want to waste my time reading their 10-year-old magazines on how to, be a better golfer or whatever it is. I was purposeful in carrying that with me, and it ended up that I had 35 minutes, even though my appointment was 5 minutes after I arrived. Sitting there for 35 minutes, this is typical for all of us, and so have reading material with you so that you can read. Set a reading goal. I wouldn't recommend weekly. That's a little too short, and sometimes your week can really get bungled up. And even a month, I think, maybe is a little too short. I'd like to rather suggest about a 90-day or 3-month goal for you. Have in your mind the type of, the amount of books that you'd like to read in the next 90 days. And then aim for that. Giving yourself a target, pushing towards that, is going to be a good way to start getting through that reading list that you have. Remember the old saying that the person who aims for nothing always reaches it. So have a goal, and even if you don't hit it, you'll get close. And so have a reading goal. Again, I suggest about a 3-month reading goal. Have a yearly reading goal as well, in which those 90-day or those 3-month reading goals can start pushing you towards getting to that ultimate goal. I personally set 90-day reading goals, and I don't always hit it, but quite often I get close or I get there. And it's also a great time to stop and look back and see what you have read. Pat yourself on the back, make sure you check them all off that list, and then get ready and set for that next 90 days push and deciding what books you're going to read during that period as well. Read during the in-between, and this is really going to what I said about having books present with you, but there's plenty of time if you look at your day where you do have time to do something. The problem is that we usually fill that with social media. So we quickly check out Twitter and see what the latest tweets are, or we check through Facebook, and I'm just as guilty about this as anyone. But if we instead shift our focus to spending more time reading, having that book with us, even between classes, or if you are sitting lunch and you're going to be sitting by yourself, you're not meeting with someone, not that I'm saying ignore all your friends or whatever, but if you're by yourself, then have that book with you. There's plenty of spaces in your life that you can fill with reading. I also want to suggest audiobooks. Now, I prefer reading an actual book, but I do walking or biking. In those cases, it's always nice to have an audiobook going at the time, whichever list it's coming from. I tend to not like reading more academic-minded books in audiobooks, but there may be some, again, life enrichment, spiritual enrichment, those types of books, and those are, I find, perfect for audiobook format. And so I always have an audiobook going. I already told you I already have a novel going, and of course I have an academic book always going as well. And so it's good to have audiobooks. I want to give you another little tip. And now this is not always the case for every book, but on Amazon, if you purchase your books from Amazon, they have a nice new feature that occurs with some Kindle books. So if you buy a Kindle book, if you're there on a Kindle page, there are times now when they'll also offer you the Audible version of the book for only another $2. And in those cases, I like to buy both. And I like to buy both for two reasons. First, it gives me the Audible version, and I find it easier if I want to go back to an Audible book I've listened to. It's obviously easier to go back and search the Kindle book rather than having to try and find it on an Audible book. The second reason is that if you are really, you're very much an auditory learner, you can actually listen to the Audible book, and you can even speed it up, which is great, and you can look at your Kindle book and read along to the Audible narration. So that's just a little tip for those who frequent Kindle books. Again, it's not available with every Kindle book. I think they're trying to do it more and more, and when you do see it, jump on it. Finally, and this is really the most important, you need to just set a time each day. I say the earlier the better, because the reality is that as your day goes on, more and more legitimate things pop up in your life that require and demand your attention. It may be people, it may be problems, it may be just the day, it may be unexpected events, it may be work. All of those things are very legitimate. And so the earlier that you can set it in your day, often it's the better. And this isn't always the case. It might be that you just don't have time until the evening. And if that's the case, then okay, put it earlier in your evening. Because again, the more things go on in the day, the more likely it is that you'll end up pushing off something like this. But setting a time each day is helping you to cultivate a habit. You need to embrace the power of habit. Okay, we all have habits. We brush our teeth, we shower before bed, or whatever it might be. All of these things we've ingrained into ourselves by doing over and over again, such that it becomes second nature. And if you want to lead a reading lifestyle, then reading needs to become second nature. It needs to be just something that you naturally do. It's naturally always having a book on the go. It's always making sure you have that next book that you're working on with you. It's just cultivating that habit, and setting a consistent time each day to read is really number one. I left it to last because in this case I wanted to highlight the most important thing at the end, and that's cultivating that habit. And this will make you a lifelong reader if you can make it a habitual thing. So embrace the power of habit, set a reading time each day, and work towards getting to that time and actually doing it each day as well. So I hope that I've added value to you and maybe sparked your interest in a few things that you can do in your life to tweak and find more time to read for yourself. And so I really want to encourage you as a fellow reader to work on some of these things and get more reading done in your life. But maybe while I'm scratching you where you itch, maybe there's more itch to scratch. And that's why I really want to tell you about my newest course, which is called Reading for Information Extraction. So it's going beyond just finding more time to read. I want to help you to read at a faster pace. And I want to help you to learn more from the books that you actually do read. Sometimes we read books, a month goes by, we look at it, and we can barely remember what was in there. That's frustrating. And so I want to help you to actually get more from those books you read. I want to give you a system that I've worked on and learned over time from my time of study, graduate studies and PhD studies, to help you get that information from books and make it more useful to you later. And so I'm going to teach you that system in this course, Reading for Information Extraction. And then of course I'm going to help you with all of that to start working through that reading list so that you're actually checking things off and feeling a good sense of accomplishment that you've gotten the information that you want out of that book, and then moving on. And so I really want to encourage you. I hope to see you in the course. You can go to my website, dannyzacharias.net, and you'll find my online courses page there where you can enroll in the course Reading for Information Extraction, and I hope to see you there.